All right, people really don't like these double text questions, and I understand why. They can be kind of dense. There's a lot of science sometimes. They're time consuming because there's now two things we got to read. If that is going to bother you and you're worried about timing, then skip them. Pick a random letter and move on. And then if you have time at the end, come back. But there's only going to be one or two of these per exam, so they're not a huge priority. Let's see what we get just though by going into it. So first thing I always do is read the question. Let's just make sure we know what we're supposed to be thinking about as we sort through these. So how would the author of text 1 most likely to respond to the study findings mentioned in text 2? So I'm going to read them in order. Let's get some sort of dumb summary, hopefully, of what text 1 believes, and then we can compare that to 2. Mycoprotein is a fungal biomass that can be eaten as an alternative to meat. Studies of the environmental impact of its manufacture generally agree it is lower than that of beef and closer to that of chicken or pork. But the expense of producing mycoprotein restricts its availability to a few countries with post-industrial economies. Knowing that cost reductions would expand access to mycoprotein, biochemists are exploring solutions such as cheaper substrate to feed the mycoprotein as it grows. So my general sense is it's like, okay, it's good and it's bad, right? There's something about the cost that's too high, but it's maybe good because of the environment. So like, I don't care so much about all that. I get the sense it's good and bad. Let's see what text 2 says, and we'll go from there. Text 2. Cattle farming is a principal cause of global deforestation, and a study by Florian Humpenoder and his colleagues found that replacing 20% of beef consumption worldwide with consumption of mycoprotein would cut deforestation by half if accomplished over the next 30 years. However, this would likely involve only a small change in agricultural water consumption, since water once dedicated to raising cattle would be diverted to raising crops instead. So this just seems kind of random. It's save forests, not water. So to me, on their face, these don't really seem related. They just seem like two different things about this mycoprotein. I don't really see the help here or the relationship here. So maybe they're both saying there's like a good and a bad, right? This is good. Maybe this is bad. I don't know. But who cares? I'm going to let the choices tell me what to get out of this. So don't worry about like rereading. Oh, I got to understand it better. No, let the choices tell you. So choice A. Text 1 would respond by emphasizing that since agricultural water consumption would remain static in the event of replacing beef consumption with mycoprotein consumption, an effort must be made to substitute mycoprotein for chicken and pork in diets as well. Oh my goodness, no, it wasn't about this. Like, I remember reading that they were comparing the mycoprotein to chicken versus pork, or for beef versus chicken and pork, but it's not like, it's not that kind of comparison. First of all, the first passage didn't really even talk about water at all. So this just seems random to me. Hopefully you kind of get the sense that this just wasn't what passage 1 was saying. It's not getting this specific about, well, we got to replace the beef, but not the chicken, not the pork, or yes to all three. Like wasn't talking about that. And we can go back. I mean, words like chicken and pork are not hard to scan for and just instantly go back and see. Let's look at 2. B, by asserting that the development of a more inexpensive substrate for mycoprotein production would contribute to the goal of decreasing worldwide forestation over time. Okay, well, I do remember text 1 talking about the cost, so that seems good for now. And then the second one talks about deforestation, so I don't know, at least those are the right things. I don't know if that's right, though. I'm having trouble kind of understanding in my brain, but that's all right. I don't need to be perfect right away. Let's just see what the other choices are. If everything else is terrible, then I'm just going to pick B and move on. But let's see. C, by noting that most people would be more likely to use mycoprotein as a substitute for chicken or pork in their diets than as a substitute for beef. Again, this is the same problem as A. This isn't like the choices between putting it in a hamburger versus putting it in like a chicken tender. Like it doesn't, that's not what this is about. So that bothers me. This comparison of chicken versus beef is not really part of text 1 in any major way. But also most people, this is that idea of a quantifier again, right? I don't know what most people would do. Maybe some people would do that, but that's not the same as saying most people. Most is a very, very strong word we have to be nervous about. So that just does not, already it bothers me. And if I were between, let's say, B and C, and I had to just like choose one and move on, the very fact of the word most there would bother me in choice C. D, by pointing out that some countries are responsible for greater deforestation than others, are they really comparing countries? And thus, to have any significant effect on the environment, will have to replace more than 20% of their beef consumption with mycoprotein. I just don't feel like they're getting this specific about anything. This is very weirdly specific. All three of these wrong answers are giving very specific solutions that I just don't remember coming up. Yes, I guess they do talk about it being different. Like some countries have different economies than others, but I don't think that they're talking about the deforestation really. In that case, they were talking about the different countries in terms of their ability to just like use this mycoprotein, right? Some have the right economy to produce it, some do not. So that's not really about the deforestation. That's about the mycoprotein. So again, this just seems random. So B is the answer. I would be satisfied with it without having to need to like go any deeper into proving it, and then I would move on. But if you want to, we can. I guess what they're saying is by asserting that the development of a more inexpensive substrate, so the thing that it grows on for mycoprotein production, would contribute to the goal of decreasing worldwide forestation over time. Because text 1 is saying the problem with this mycoprotein is it's expensive. So if we made it less expensive, then lots of places would be able to use it. And then since mycoprotein would reduce deforestation, it's going to be good. So it's not getting into specifically like, oh, where do we need to make it less expensive? Where does the deforestation happen? If we start using it, are we using it to replace chicken? Are we using it to replace beef? It doesn't get that specific. B is much more general about just like, yeah, it's expensive. If we solve that problem, then we'll also be able to solve the problem of deforestation because we just won't have as much beef. Like we won't have as much of that. So weak, vaguer answers are usually better. The more specific something is, the more risky it is.